Anatomy of a Fall is a French film directed by Justine Triet. It stars Sandra Hüller as a writer trying to prove her innocence in her husband's death. Over a riveting 2.5 hours, the film explores how truths and facts become fictions in the retellings. Samuel Merleski, his wife, German novelist Sandra Voiter, and their visually impaired son Daniel live in an isolated mountain chalet near Grenoble. Daniel returns from a long walk with his guide dog to find his father dead, splayed out in the snow, blood trickling from his head, far below an open attic window. This sets in motion a protracted, invasive, and grueling process for Sandra and her son, one which will be played out in the glare of public scrutiny. Daniel gives conflicting accounts of exactly where he was around the time of the incident. This, combined with an autopsy revealing Samuel's head wound occurred before his body hit the ground, and an audio recording Samuel made of a fight he and Sandra had the day before he died, prompts an indictment. During the trial, Sandra's defense team claimed Samuel fell from the attic window and hit his head on a shed, while the prosecution's theory is that Sandra hit him with a blunt object and pushed him from the third-floor balcony. Director Justine Triet braids the narrative with new revelations, shifted perspectives, patchy and inconclusive evidence, untidy ambiguities, all of it accruing without divulging anything clinching. The viewer is always engaged in assessing Sandra Hüller, in fact is always honing in on her, looking for lapses, flickers of uncertainty or dissembling, how she asserts herself against or falters under public examination, or might be on the cusp but ultimately resists any private admission or indiscretion. The viewer is constantly speculative, wondering to what extent, socially, professionally, and publicly, she is performative and insincere, whether there is a carapace beyond which might lurk a harder, darker side, or if she is simply bearing up as best she can, or anyone could, under such duress and exposure. The film achieves the extraordinary feat of allowing us to hold two wildly divergent possibilities about Sandra Hüller's character in our head simultaneously. Over a substantial runtime, there are fluid, permeable ideas of the truth and the ellipses between them. Daniel keeps prevaricating and adjusting his recollections of events, perhaps to protect his mother, perhaps muddled by trauma. There is an interesting parallel narrative in court, where Sandra is often standing her ground in terms of lifestyle and aesthetic sensibilities, certain dispensations or contexts inherent to her profile and creativity. We as viewers often take the measure of this, sympathetic and skeptical in turns. In court, Sandra admits her resentment toward Samuel due to his partial responsibility for the accident that led to Daniel's impaired vision. Her recollections of her husband and the motivations or neuroses and resentment she attributes to him make the viewer uneasy because such attributions and framing inevitably cast her in a more sympathetic light. Sandra alleges Samuel made an attempt to overdose on aspirin 6 months earlier while having gone off antidepressants. In the recorded fight, played to the court, Samuel accuses Sandra of plagiarism, infidelity, and of exerting control over his life. The protracted argument turns physically violent, but it is unclear who was striking whom or what. The rhythm and suspension is upheld throughout, and even in the dramatic lulls there is a medium of malaise and resentment. Just as any one supposition might be hardening, Triet will subtly subvert it. Sandra's hard-edged persona giving way to backstory scenes of cozy domestic meals, her intellectual toughness giving way to a scene of tenderness with her son. Her license as a successful and compelling novelist to live outside of conventional attitudes, gender roles, fidelity, and behavior is followed by scenes of friendship, bleak loneliness, and moments of irresolute self-consciousness under public scrutiny, maintaining her poise as best she can. All of this is achieved without a hint of the prim, clever for its own sake intricacies or red herrings or positioned twists of a common thriller, whodunit or police procedural or courtroom drama. Where those things are plotted and structured and schematic and sequenced, Anatomy of a Fall is sinuous, shot through with realism, not concerned so much with motivations and alibis as fully fleshed out characterization. It is about perception, our inclinations to form assumptions, to project, to impose expectations, and even insert ourselves into the emotional melee between husband and wife. The supporting cast are all excellent, and a special mention has to be made of Milo Machado-Graner, who plays the son Daniel, with a somber vulnerability, especially given he is not actually a sight-impaired young person. His already circumscribed world, the literal limitations and uncertainties of his environment due to his condition, work in sensitive relation to the uncertainties surrounding his mother and the events he is pressed to recall. His role functions as the emotional core of the film and is subtly key to its resolution and catharsis. Many critics quite reasonably suggested his performance was Oscar-worthy. The camera knows when to be intimate and when to hold on a static wider shot, encompassing the stilted body language of rows and unresolved tensions. It shifts from film to the various more functional formats, the unsparing and stark, low-grade digital resolution of cameras and depositions or forensic simulations. What is perhaps most appealing about this film is its seeming to appear with hardly any fanfare, a grown-up work that exists purely on its own terms and respects and engages the audience throughout, and doesn't adhere to conventional notions of acts or arcs or twists. It is an enduring reminder of the value of sophisticated writing. It would be a worthy Oscar winner.